Hi folks, it's Ajo the Hunting Gear Guy, and this is the Jard J180. It's a 180-ish type rifle. I've got two cameras going in here, so I might switch between them when one shows the other gun, or shows the gun better, but basically it's a 180. It's got a couple of interesting features on it that some of the other 180s don't. One is that it allows you to use a gas tube in your rifle. It actually allows the gas tube to go in there. And what that means is that you can use other AR barrels. So this really opens up the availability of other barrels for this thing. You can see that I'm empty, so I want to take a closer look at this thing. Now, because these things are... Get out of here. Get out of there. Now, because these things are build kits, everything you see here will be the same, but the stocks and grips and forends and the barrel and all this kind of stuff will vary based on the builder and what they decide to do with it. So that varies quite a bit, and so it's not really worth talking about like the accuracy of this thing because that'll vary based on the barrel. All I'm really going to focus on is right here. A couple of interesting things with this thing. So we've got a charging handle on the right-hand side, eject on the right-hand side, nothing on the left. So only on the right-hand side. That means for you righties, you're going to have to pull your trigger hand off to manipulate the gun. Speaking of lower, you can put any AR safety that you want to in there. That's very interesting. Most of the 180s, you have to use the crazy safety that they have on them, along with that little spring that they've got on there and all that kind of jazz. We've got a magazine release that is also non-standard for these 180 style rifles. This one doesn't quite go far in enough to really latch on some magazines, and I'll show you that in a minute. You can use a standard grip. It's almost like it could use a beaver tail, but it's not quite the right shape to be a beaver tail. So odd choice there on why they chose to go that way. If you're going to get this close, you might as well go the last little bit and just make it a beaver tail, right? Now, one thing you might notice, boy, there's a lot of screws on this thing. That's because it's two pieces. It's like a clamshell style construction. It's two pieces all the way around here on the lower, and it's literally screwed together from the middle. I haven't noticed any issues from this, but it's not really super confidence inspiring. There is quite a bit of rattle from the upper and lower. This doesn't matter though. Like, that totally doesn't matter. It's not something that's important. And you can hear it just doesn't sound good. But accuracy wise, I mean, your bolt is in the upper, it locks into the barrel. There shouldn't be really any issues there. It doesn't matter that it's a little bit rattly on the lower. We've got a couple of like grooves up here. I'm not sure if you're supposed to like hold on to this with your magazine kind of a thing, but maybe that's what the idea is. I never shoot like this. I always shoot, further out because I'm usually shooting 3-gun. Ejection and charging is right hand only. There is nothing on the left hand side here. That's great if you don't like having lots of open slots on your gun and you prefer to have it a little bit more tight. They do have an optional dust cover kit that you can get for these things. The extra kit is, I think it's $160. I don't know if I mentioned this at the start of this video, but these things are kind of expensive. They're right around $1,200-$1,300 just for the kit, not the rifle, just for the little kit here. You still have to add like forend, barrel, stock, grip, trigger, all that kind of stuff, optic. It's all got to be added on afterwards, so it's a little bit pricey. So that means for a Canadian who had an AR before, now it's prohibited because reasons. They got a bunch of parts. Maybe they have a bunch of like really nice rifle parts and they want to go to the range, or they want to, I don't know, maybe go shoot some coyotes with it or something like that. They can put a lot of those parts onto a gun like this and actually use it, make use of those parts. So very interesting from that aspect, and I think that a lot of people are going to be looking at this rifle for that. I'm going to show you a couple of interesting things. One, there's no bolt hold open, and there's not really any way to get a bolt hold open on these. With some of the WKs and that kind of a thing, there is an optional bolt hold open that you can get on the side there. No such luck with this one, but you can press that little tab there, so you can pull your charging handle back, press the little tab in, and it will hold the bolt open. This is also what will work when you have your magazines empty. The other thing I noticed that I don't really like is it's pretty picky on magazines. I'm going to show you a couple of different magazines here, and you're going to see what issues you're going to run across. So this is, what is this? An RRA LAR mag. This one's nice and tight. It's tight. It's pretty tight back and forth, and it won't pull out. So this one works. This one's tight in all my guns, though. The part of this comes back to like AR mags have a little bit of a wiggle room in terms of the spec. These cross mags, I like them, but they can nose down a little bit too much. This actually caused some failure to feeds for me because it would nose down and they would hit below the feed ramp and fail to feed. So I ran into that issue with these cross mags. The other issue is they just pop out. So I'm not pressing on the magazine release. It's definitely latched in. Boop, you just pull them right out. I think the magazine catch just doesn't go quite as far in as it should and doesn't catch on the magazines. One other issue with the magazines is the overstop pins. So they've got these little screws that come into the side, and those screws are your over insertion stops. So if you ram this magazine in, you're ramming them against two tiny little screws. And the screws will probably be fine. Your magazine feed lips probably won't. So that was the cross mag. The P mags, found these worked fine. They have a nice tight fit. They lock in there really well. So no issue there. This is a Hera mag. And this one is nice and tight, but it also comes right out. It does. It's like it's not even latched. Makes a click. Listen. Well, there's a nice click. Well, it just comes right out. So that's no good. How about this aluminum? What is this? Restricted military government. Yeah. They all say that. It's got the 5-round rivet in it. Oh. Now, like that's pretty good retention, but I found that while I was shooting this thing, if I didn't hold on to the magazine, it would fall out just a little bit, and then I would get fails to feed because it wouldn't catch the next round. I have no idea where this mag is from, and it comes right out. Unmarked, no-name magazine. I'm not sure where this is from. No, it just comes right out. How about a big P mag? Oh yeah, that fits just fine. And then finally an RRA magazine. I'm not sure who makes this one. This is a flat bottom one. This one had too much wiggle. I remember from the range, and it also comes out. So I think there's some work to be done on the magwell. There's a little bit too much front to back wiggle room in them, and that's going to cause issues with rounds either feeding too high or too low. With me, I found too low. And really, what I ended up doing was with the magazines that would kind of feed, I would hold on to them and hold them in the gun, angled up. Not ideal. Not ideal at all. But that all being said, you could find magazines that'll work with this gun and just use those, and I guess that would be fine. Why don't we disassemble this thing? It's got a very interesting disassembly. I'm just going to poke out one pin at the back here, and I'm just going to use my pen, my disassembly tool, to pull it out. And then once that pin's out, boop, out comes the lower. There's your lower right there. And you can see that we've got AR distant safety, so we can use those standard pins. We've got some anti-walks on here for the trigger pack. And this is actually a good idea. This is not. I don't know what's going on with this magazine release. I couldn't actually see a way of tightening it or getting it to engage a little bit more. I wonder if it's just rounded. Oh, it looks kind of rounded. Maybe that's the issue. I'm just looking at that magazine release in there. It looks a bit rounded, so maybe that's the issue. And you can see, of course, that there's lots of screws in this thing because it's two halves that are screwed together. Okay, that leaves our upper, which still just happily reciprocates and does whatever it needs to. If we want to take it out, we need to take out these rods, and we take those out straight from the back. We see another pin right here, so we're just going to give that pin a little push with our pen. Okay, I've got that pin started, and I'm just going to hold on to the plate at the back here because this thing's under pressure, and I'm just going to pull that. And I'm going to slowly release that pressure from those recoil springs and guide rods. Next, I can pull the bolt all the way to the back, wiggle the charging handle out. Wiggle the charging handle out. The charging handle is actually retained with that guide rod there, so it'll just come out any time. Pull the bolts to the back, and then it just falls out the bottom. So that leaves our bolt. You can see our bolt and carrier there. It's got a standard cam pin on the side, and we've got our firing pin at the back. So nothing too crazy happening there. If you get one of these things, I would recommend oiling that cam pin channel there. Like with all ARs, the cam pin is what experiences the most force as it's trying to extract that round and ram it into the chamber as well. So having that channel there lubed is a good idea. To put it all back together, we're going to take... I could take this bolt down a little bit more, but there's not really any kind of mystery in there. Yeah, pull the cotter pin out the side and take it all apart, whatever. Let's get this thing back in there. I'm just going to slide her in there, grab my charging handle, pop it in. I'm going to show you something with that charging handle that I learned the hard way. These recoil springs have a little slot on them. That slot has to be facing down because the pin is actually going to engage with it. And I'm just going to schmiggle these in. This is going to be fun to do on camera. Now, the thing I discovered that took me a while to figure out is this charging handle can't be all the way in. It's got to be back a little bit in order for this thing to go all the way in. Because it's catching on the groove on that charging handle. If it's all the way in, the groove doesn't line up. So I'm pushing that plate all the way in, and then I'm going to push my pin into the side, and that's it. It's a very simple. I do like the way that the upper is designed. It's very simple to get into, and let's see. There's our lower, and we've got that little notch at the front there, and that's going to come into the front, grab onto something, and then we're just going to press that pin in the back, and that's it. So pretty easy to get this thing apart to clean. So again, that was the Jard J180. A couple of interesting things. I think there's a couple things that are just not designed correctly in this rifle. The over insertion stops, not designed right. I don't know why you'd want to do that. It's an inexpensive way, I guess, of putting some magazine stops in there, but it's not going to last. If you use a plastic magazine and you ram them in there, it's going to mark up your magazines. So if you shoot this in competition, you usually want to make sure that you firmly seat your magazine, because often in competition doesn't seat all the way because we've got tight magazines, 5 rounds in there, you ram it in and it's tight against a closed bolt, and now it didn't actually go in. You go to fire, your magazine falls out, you look like a dickhead in front of all your buddies. So you slam your magazines home. And in this gun, doing that kind of thing is going to ram your magazine feed lips against those 2 screws and wear them in and dent them, and then cause more feeding issues. So I don't think that's designed quite right. The fact that the buffer tube's low on the gun, I think it's fine. Like it's just something to take into consideration when you're using it. But it's not going to cause any like real issues with it. I don't think the recoil is gonna like go up because it's a little bit off of center. Like it's just not that big of a deal. I do prefer left-hand charge on a gun because I'm a righty and I want to be able to change my magazine, drop my magazine, grab another one, hit it, and then do something else with my left hand. And right now I'd have to do the AK thing and go over or underneath the bottom or over top, whichever I'd want, I guess. This thing liked to be well oiled. If I tried shooting just like steel case ammo in it just doesn't cycle. Brass, it cycled as long as the magazines fit correctly in it. Who do I think should buy one of these things? I think like the WKs and the WS-MCRs are better value for the dollar right now, because for $1,300 you can get a whole rifle. And with this one, you need to add a bunch of parts to it to make it run. I don't think you should get one of these if you're into competition, because again, you're gonna be ramming the magazine in there and that's gonna cause you some issues. And the mag compatibility might mean that your competition mags don't run in this thing, even though like your 5-round mag pulls do. So that's one thing to think about if you're in Canada. I would recommend getting an adjustable gas block, because this thing's going to be, it's going to have different requirements than an AR in terms of like what this bolt is doing, how much weight the bolt has and that kind of a thing. An adjustable gas block is an easy way of being able to tune the rifle, and you want to be able to tune it. So if you run steel case ammo and it needs a little bit more stank coming back, you dial it a little bit more stank and the action runs just fine. If you're running, I don't know, some pretty hot brass case stuff, and you don't want the extra wear and tear on your gun, you can dial it down and get it so that thing's just barely cycling, enough to be reliable, but cycling nice and lightly. Adjustable gas blocks are really highly recommended if you're going to get one of these guns. Ultimately, yeah, I think they have a couple of things to improve on it, but it is very promising. I do like the fact that you can change barrels fairly easily on these things. There's going to be a bunch of 18.5, 19-inch barrels here in Canada that people were using for other guns that they can no longer use on them. That would make sense using on something like this. So super interesting rifle. Thanks again to Dave from Foothill Firearms Training in Calgary for loaning it to me for review. Thanks for watching.